I hope that all of you are doing well and taking care of yourselves. I know that we are all in the middle of a crisis. I am pretty sure that it will be over soon. So thank you, Clavent team, for inviting me for this one. Today, I'm going to be talking to you about test automation letting you down. Let's explore 5 reasons why. But before that, let me just introduce myself very briefly in just 3 lines. I'm a senior consultant with the digital manufacturing unit of Sogeti in the Netherlands. And you can find me on LinkedIn and on Twitter. So this is a 3-line introduction of mine. So before going further, we have been talking, or we have been hearing other speakers talk so much about test automation. So let's understand what test automation is first up before I get deeper into the topic. Now, for the benefit of all of you, what I have done is I have tried to put my thoughts on test automation in just one sentence. And here it is. Test automation is the automation of certain aspects of testing using code and or a tool. By aspects of testing, what I mean is automation of test procedures, automation of test data generation, automation of test results collation, automation of test results validation, automation of test report designing, automation of continuous monitoring of systems. All of these are a part of test automation. So if we restrict ourselves thinking that, oh, test automation is only about converting so-called manual test cases into automation test cases, well, that's a very narrow way of thinking about test automation. Having seen that, let's look at what test automation can do for us. Number 1, test automation can reduce redundancy. Test automation helps us take care of all the boring tasks that we do day in, day out, the repetitive tests that we may have to run as a part of our regression cycles. Automation lets you take care of that. Secondly, automation helps us reach the market faster. By that, what I mean is that when you automate something, you make sure that there is enough speed. You make sure that you are able to get the tests done faster so that you can focus on other things and you can take care of those aspects so that you can reach the customer faster through your tests. Automation provides you greater accuracy. So when, as humans, we try and repeat things over and over again, there is a chance of us making mistakes. But automation makes sure that the accuracy is maintained. Even though there are repetitions, even though there are things, you will always find it accurate. And like I said, we as humans are prone to errors. With automation, it is less prone to errors. Please understand this very carefully. It is not 0 errors, it is less prone to errors. There is a situation where, sometimes people tend to think, oh, automation, there will be no errors. Absolutely. That is not true. Automation is subject to errors because for automation, you will have to develop the code. And in doing so, you may make mistakes, which may cause those errors. And in a lot of systems, they may be fatal errors because there is no final check being done. Finally, with all the 4 that have been mentioned above, that is reduced redundancy, faster time to market, greater accuracy, and less number of errors, what you achieve is greater agility with improved quality. So this is what automation can actually do for us. Having said that, I have a question, a big question. If there are so many benefits, then why are we not so happy with test automation? Why do we, in all the discussions, find that people are talking about automation? Oh, I don't know how to get around it. I don't know why my scripts are failing. I don't know why my tests are not giving me the desired return on investment. I don't know where to go. I have invested so much money behind my automation. Why is it still not working fine? And all those sort of questions. Very seldom do we see people saying, yay, automation has done so well for us. We are so happy. But then let's look at some of the reasons why we could be saying that automation is still a problem. Number 1, unrealistic expectations. there is a myth that 100% automation coverage can be achieved, everything can be automated, and that is a disastrous myth. A lot of people think that automation can get you results, automation can do anything and everything for you, everything can be automated. Let us not forget that that is an absolutely unrealistic expectation. Number two, at the start of automation projects, there are sometimes no feasibility tests or checks done, or even if they are done, they are very inaccurate. So to speak, a lot of times situation happens such that 80% of the automation work is done within no time, or say some amount of time, but the 20% still lingers on. So let's find out why that happens a little later. Then, with regards to automation, what is also observed that a lot of teams tend to operate in silos. They think that they are automation champions, they are on top of the world, they don't need any other advice, they are superior and they don't need to collaborate. They treat themselves as a separate entity. And so much so that the organization also starts treating them differently, giving them a sense of superiority and alienating them from the rest of the test and the test procedures. So what is required is more of collaboration, and that is something that is missing, and that lets us down big time. Fourth point, not knowing when and how to use automation. It's something like we say normally in cowboy coding that people come in and fix code in production on the go and they are done. They don't look back at what could be the problems initially. It is all the fixes are all happening real time on the go. So that is a big problem. Finally, when people start automating, generally the first step is to try and learn UI automation. Start with Selenium or any other tool. And when they get started, they see a lot of reds on their screen and scripts failing, elements not being found, and so many errors that they start getting discouraged. So there is a stumble in the first step, which demoralizes testers, which has a bigger impact down the line, because a lot of testers, you ask them, oh, why don't you learn automation? No, automation is boring. Actually, that's not the reason. The reason is that they have not been able to cross the first step. Let's look at each of them in a little more detail. When I say unrealistic expectations and the 100% myth, the first thing that comes to my mind is this. I am sure all of you are aware of what this is and what these people do. Apart from everything else, apart from being all over the social media and helping people get connected and all the nice things, Facebook claims that they don't generally hire testers or have any testing positions. They have a fully automated continuous integration, continuous deployment pipeline, and that's why they have a perfect product. Well, the reality is this. In my usage of Facebook for so many years, I have never ever seen notifications work correctly. So if Facebook, despite all the automation, despite all the CI/CD pipeline and stuff, cannot solve my problem, then how good is that automation? Then where is that 100% coverage coming from? So it is a myth. We need to understand that there is no such thing as 100% automation coverage. That can never happen. I think the same point was highlighted in Kate's talk yesterday, and she also made some very valid points around that. So I would like to re-emphasize on what she said yesterday. Second thing is, in a lot of projects, people don't do any feasibility analysis. They just get started. We want to get on with automation, we'll get started. What they don't realize is that when they start talking about test tools and automation testing, there is a lot that is undergoing beneath the sea. And this causes disasters in the end. Just to highlight, in the Telegram
community chat group, I did a poll a few days ago, and a lot of people participated in that poll. And these are the results. Now, if you look at the bottom two aspects, that there are 12% people who do not know what feasibility analysis is, and then there are 12% people who feel that their management does not care, or who say that their management does not care about feasibility analysis. Oh no, I just want to get the automation done. That's the feeling. If you go in with that feeling without knowing what parts of your application are candidates for automation, without understanding at what layers can you actually automate, without actually understanding how do we say, what do we mean when we say end-to-end automation, without understanding any of it, when they just go for it, the result is always a disaster. Moving further. Now, like I said, teams operate in silos. Automation teams operate in silos, and this was very well highlighted in this year's World Quality Report, which is published by Capgemini Sogeti in association with Micro Focus. And a lot of leaders, out of the 1,750 respondents, believed, number one, that there is a need to build a stronger quality assurance community culture, that is, people working together, because they feel that despite having automation prowess, there is lack of collaboration, and that is the result of failure. And you will also notice that 80% of them feel that there is a need for collaboration tools for testers. Yes, there are collaboration tools available, but exclusively for testers, they feel that there are tools that are required. And less number of people, that is 74% of the respondents, believe or feel that, when you talk about test automation, they should focus on that. More than that, they feel that, okay, collaboration is something that will help us fix the problems. Not knowing when and how to use automation, it is, like I said, a classic problem where, if there is a failure, then people go and fix in production. I mean, we have seen that happening always, and that goes on happening, and there is, a lot of anxiety in the minds of the management as to how to fix that. The problem is that when you push garbage inside, you will always get garbage outside. When you do not know what you are trying to automate, when you do not know how effectively you want to use automation, you will always get bad results. You will never get the result that you want. So that needs to be fixed. People need to understand what they want to automate. People need to understand why they want to automate. People need to understand at what layers they want to automate. Only then it is possible to get the right results. Finally, as I was saying, that when you start your journey as an automation tester, you see screens like this, which is full of red with errors, and your locators are not being found, and you stumble. And when you stumble, you tend to get demotivated. And when you get demotivated, you easily say, oh, that's boring, I don't want to do it anymore. And when that happens, and if that is happening in a project, then imagine the fate of that project. That you get somebody new, ask him to learn automation, and then get started, and he or she after 15 days says, oh, I don't know, I can't handle this. This is not for me. This is boring. Just because they have not been able to cross the first step. So the thing is, how do we fix all this? Number one is to be self-aware, to understand that 100% coverage is not possible and not everything can be automated. This is the very basic. This needs to be ingrained into us. We need to be very aware of this fact. So if there is somebody who says, no, give me 100% automation, you have to stop him or her then and there and say, no, that is not possible. You cannot automate everything. Secondly, please do a feasibility analysis anytime you want to start. See what is feasible, see what is not feasible. Understand what can actually be automated, what cannot be automated. Don't chase things unnecessarily towards the end of the project thinking, oh, I thought that this was automatable, and now I see that it is not. No, don't end up being in that situation. And please, collaborate. Collaborate with your fellow testers. Collaborate with developers. Ask them, understand from them, what they are coding, in what line they are coding. How can they help you with your test code? Can something be done? Get involved in activities like test-driven development. Work with them. Work with architects. Understand the application architecture. Understand the architecture of your test solution. Understand and see if both can work in parallel. Understand what are the aspects of the product that can be automated. Get the basics right. And most importantly, educate yourself, educate others. Keep learning about the latest tools. Now, when I talk about tools and technology, we've seen that I was talking about the stumbling blocks, So we've seen that, testers struggle with locators and problems like that. So what have testers done to get past that problem? There are browser extensions like Selectors Hub available, which can solve this problem. Learn about that. Understand what it does. There are tools like Test Project, open source tools like Test Project that are available, which will help you get started with your automation journey. Test Project has a few very cool features. Just to name a few, they have an AI-enabled self-healing feature which lets you find locators or work with locators without any hassle, and it is scriptless. So you don't have to break your head over, oh, what is going wrong? It is not able to find the element and things like that. It has got a share center which allows you to collaborate. So use tools like that. Learn about them. Learn about tools like Robot Framework. Learn about tools like Karate DSL. They are all open source tools. Get started with that. Get yourself educated. Don't get stuck upon one or two tools or a certain technology. Empower yourself with knowledge. And before I end this, I just want you to think about this. Seek value and don't seek ROI. Because if you seek value in your automation, then you will see that test automation is giving you much more benefits than what you perceived. And that is the end of my talk. Thank you so much.
Yeah, under the Q&A tab here.
Okay, I am in Q&A. Okay. I see 4 questions here. So much emphasis put on automation. Can you define functional and technical testers? Can we define functional and technical testers in an engineering role? That is a very good question, David. Now, in an engineering role, yeah, there can be functional engineers and there can be technical testers, of course. Yeah, but that critical difference has to be understood by the people, by the stakeholders, by the managers. It cannot be that, okay, I go in as a tester and say, oh, you know what, my skill is in testing functional, doing functional testing, so I'll stick to that. No, we have to find a balance. In engineering teams, you need a combination of functional testers. You need a combination of technical testers. In fact, I will just make one point very clear. I mean, by functional tester, if you mean that somebody who doesn't know automation, then let me get that myth straight out of the window. Okay, let us stop dividing testing, first of all, into manual and automation. There is manual testing. It is all testing. Yes, sometimes tools, you have to execute with tools. Sometimes you don't use tools. Okay, but then testing is testing. You can't segregate it just based on what tools you execute or what tools you use to execute your test. Okay, so let's clarify that. And then, like I said, that it's important to educate people, have to understand that, okay, engineering teams need a combination of testers who are able to play with code. There are testers who are experts in identifying issues in the functionality. We need a combination of such testers. Okay, the next question that I see is, so is it not the case automation not done right? I mean, no problem with automation, but with the right steps are not followed. Yes, that is right. That is also right. First of all, the approach towards automation has to change. you have to get the things right. You have to understand what needs to be automated, what does not need to be automated. And then when you start automating, you have to follow certain steps. Okay, every process, however mad or however crazy it is, there should be some method to the madness that goes on. Okay, people have to understand that, okay, if I find myself in this situation, then what do I do? How do I get around it? People have to understand that, okay, if my code is not working, then I need to be able to reach somebody, to talk to somebody, and for that matter, that is where you need collaboration with developers. Sit with them, learn things like pair programming, learn things like pair testing. Spend your time with other fellow testers, understand the functionality, understand the steps. So yes, it is a combination of both. Well, any personal experience with feasibility analysis is the first time I heard, and I need a real scenario. Okay, so yeah, so I said, the survey said that 12% of the people have not done feasibility analysis because they have not heard. So basically what happens as a part of feasibility analysis is, when you are looking at your requirements, you start looking at it from an automation perspective. What are the features, or what are the aspects that you can actually automate is something that you will need to understand. So for that, you have to break the application up in such a manner that, okay, these are the various layers that are going to be involved. This is going to be the UI layer, and these are going to be the UI level functionalities or features. This is my API, and these are all the APIs that I have, and so these are my connections to the backend, and this is where I do all the transactions with the database. So you have to split that up and then focus on areas that, okay, these are the kind of tests that I can run on my UI. Now, can these tests be automated? Probably yes, because UI is in most cases the most suitable candidate for automation. Then you say, okay, for API, these are the kind of tests that I will be running. Are these possible to be automated? Definitely. There are a lot of API, there are a lot of tools which help you in testing out your API. So you have to break it down like this, and that analysis will give you, okay, this is the part of the code that I can automate. That will give you the feasibility. You will clearly understand that, okay, this is something that I can automate, this is something that I cannot automate. And you present that report to the stakeholders and show them, along with the risks, that, okay, these are the risks involved. If I try and go for 100% automation, this is what I will get. These are going to be my challenges. So combine your feasibility analysis with risk analysis and present your case to the management before you proceed with automation. In a lot of projects that I have taken up as consultant, I go to the customer and, customer always says, oh, we are trying to bring in automation. And I say, okay, so how open are you to doing a feasibility test? They also ask me the same question, what is it? And I said, okay, let me do it. Let me start by asking you certain questions. So I go and meet people. I go and talk to developers, architects, fellow testers, get feeders from them as to, what experience they have had on building an application like that before. Is it a new application? Is it something that is a newer version of that application? I sit with each one of them, try and understand, okay, these are the list of features that will be built in the first release. So out of these features, what has the architect come up with as a plan? Does the rest of the team understand that architecture or not? Based on that discussion, we say, okay, these are the features. So then I talk to the testers and say, okay, what kind of tests can we write? Then based on those tests, then we do an analysis as to what are automatable and what are not automatable. And those inputs coming from developers. So it is a collaborative effort. That's what goes into feasibility analysis. Okay, I hope I have answered that question. The next one is, what is realistic code coverage? Now, code coverage. Now, this is an interesting thing. When I talk about coverage, what I understand is test coverage. Okay, so test coverage is one big term, and it is, in my opinion, the coverage of your requirements. That is, how many requirements are getting covered, plus how many risks are getting covered. Now, when you say code coverage, what percentage of the code is covered by your tests? So you will talk in terms of number of lines of code, 1,000 lines of code, 10,000 lines of code, or whatever, that your particular test set is covering. So if you build an automation suite, then what portion of the actual code of the program is that automation suite covering? What are the features that are getting covered? As a part of those features, what are the risks that are getting covered? You have to measure all of that. And that, in my opinion, is realistic code coverage. Yeah, your tools, they give you some code coverage, but they are all mathematical. And they are based on certain algorithms they calculate. They need not be realistic always. For realistic code coverage, you have to consider the features, you have to consider the requirements, you have to consider the risks that are involved. If your automation test set is covering all three of that, then you can say, okay, I have now a reasonable code coverage. Although, I feel that quantifying that number and taking it as close as possible to 100% is a very dangerous line to take. What is the best automation tool for accessibility testing? Well, there are tools, but I don't remember any off the top of my head. I can help you after this presentation, because there is a tool set. There are some very nice, some very nice work done by a lot of testers on accessibility testing. That material is available, and I have access to those. I can share those after this one. Can you please elaborate on seek value and not ROI? Of course, yes. Okay, so one of the biggest questions that comes up with test automation is return on investment. What is my return on investment? How much money am I going to get back, and how soon am I going to get back? Well, if the focus remains on seeking that money, if the focus is on seeking that return right from the start, then you will see at each step you are trying to calculate, oh, what is my ROI? What is my ROI? And you get lost in that. Instead of that, if you try and automate something, see what value is that automation bringing in. See what benefit it is bringing in. What problem it is solving for you. Is it helping you run your regression tests faster? Is it helping you generate test data faster? Is it helping you build dashboards? Is it helping you, collect all your test results faster? That if that is the value, then you will automatically see things falling in place, and you will automatically see return on your investment coming in, because that is what gives you confidence, right? Rather than waiting for some money to trickle in, if you build value, if you gain the confidence of the customer, and if you are working on a potentially shippable increment, as they say in Agile, then that value will be worth that return on investment or the dollars that you're actually expecting. I hope that question is answered. So if successful automation requires these much of work as prerequisites like feasibility analysis, do you recommend test automation for small short-term projects? That's a good question. Now, a small short-term project, is it worthwhile to put in the effort to automate that? I don't know. It depends on the context. What kind of application it is? What kind of environment you are dealing with? What kind of task you are doing? Is it highly repetitive? Is it something that requires a lot of effort? A lot of analysis needs to be done. A lot of calculation needs to be done. There's a lot of math that is involved. There is a lot of data that is being transacted. Then it makes perfect sense. Okay, then it is an ideal candidate for automation. The feasibility check, I would still recommend you to do a feasibility check, but not on such a large scale. You may do it on a smaller scale as well. Ask the questions like, okay, out of these features that we are trying to build and deliver as a part of this automation effort, which are the ones which are the top ones for me that can be automated. Do that check. Because believe me, if you target to cover everything through your automation, if you target to say, okay, I will touch upon each functionality, I will touch upon each feature, then I don't think it is going anywhere. To be very honest, you will struggle. I have seen that happening. A lot of people take automation endeavor and say, oh, we will automate all functionality because we feel very confident. I'll give you a real example that happened with a customer. Okay, so a customer built a robot, and these robot had sensors bought from a company, and they built it. They put those sensors, ran some automated tests, and they saw that okay, it is operating fine in the Netherlands environment, the Netherlands weather. That's fantastic. So they sent the robot to Australia. Australia, 45-50 degrees temperature, it works fine. Everything is fine. Then the same robot is sent to Alaska, and the temperature, it is summertime in Alaska, and the temperature is apparently 8 degrees. And it fails. What happened there? All the tests were done. It was automated. What happened then? A simple check that could have been done, that could have saved that error, that could have saved that problem. They first of all, they relied on the specifications that were given by the vendor of the sensor. That was the first mistake that happened. The second mistake was when they tested it only in only one environment, and they did not put it through different environments. So, although they may have the correct set of tests in terms of your automation code and things like that, the environment was not right. So though that factor also goes in. So when you do a feasibility check, you have to always question, can I build an environment that will sustain this project, that can help me test this project well enough? Because that is also important. A lot of times when we start talking about automation, we keep the environment discussion aside. In fact, that happens with all of testing. How many times do we see discussions happening on test environment? How many times do we hear the thing like, okay, if I have to send something to production, my test environment should make sure that it looks pretty much like my test production environment, because from here it is directly going into production. It is going live. We don't hear such talks. So yes, to answer your question, short-term projects, it is possible, but again, it depends on the context and the type of application that you're dealing with. Okay, I hope I've answered that. Is that okay? The push is now for RPA, which is considered to be AI with scripts easy to maintain. So how can we convince the management as well as the team to invest in the training and using RPA? Okay, that is a good question. RPA and test automation are two different things, first of all. In RPA, you are trying to automate the business process. And in automating that business process, you will have to run some tests. Those tests can also be automated. So that is test automation. Automation is the automation of aspects of testing. And RPA is the automation of aspects of a certain process. So if I am, say for example, organizing this conference, okay. So for the Clavent team, if they have to do something like tell people that that everybody needs to be at the conference at this time, at this hour, at this spot, and they want to send an email to everybody. So that entire process of sending out a broadcast email, making sure that it is personalized enough, making sure that, okay, if they need to print out certain things or they need to understand or they need to follow certain procedure, and that needs to be done, that needs to be communicated. So that there is a process for that. So it is laborious to send out emails to 1,000 or 2,000 or 3,000 people who may have registered for the conference, right? So that's when you bring in techniques or technology like RPA. So yeah,
I understand. Okay, there is a lot of confusion in the industry saying, oh, RPA can also be achieved using, or test automation can be achieved using RPA tools. Well, yeah, it's certainly possible. It's certainly possible. But the extent to which you can automate using RPA tools is very limited. But let me tell you, RPA tools are meant for RPA, so let them do RPA. Don't try and do test automation using RPA tools. There are dedicated test tools available for doing test automation. Focus on that. Okay. The next question that I see here on the screen is, do we think automation finds defects more than exploratory testing? No. Does automation provide false sense of safety? I'm not against automation. Well, automation definitely does not provide a false sense of safety. Automation enables you to be more productive and more efficient. Look at it from that perspective. Don't look at it from a defect perspective. If you let the machine take care of your redundant tasks, such as regression testing, such as smoke testing, what you will also see is that you get a lot of time to do exploratory testing. You can't sit and run your regression test repeatedly over and over and over again, right? So when you do this, then you will automatically start finding value in automation. Please don't look at it from a defects perspective. Automation finding defects, that too more than exploratory testing, is not possible. Automation, of course, finds defects. I'm not saying that it does not find defects, but automation is more of a reassurance. It is more of a productivity hack. It is a tool. All right. I see Saurav on the screen.
I mean, like a subtle reminder to you, right? Of we nearing the time.
Yeah. I see. I see just one more question.
Sure.
Collaborate with developers to create unique identifiers. Yes. Yes, of course. Collaborate with developers to create unique identifiers is a definite point that the testers must think when they talk to developers. Yes, David, thank you for that one. Does test project store tests in their cloud? Yes, it does. It is a good tool. You can try. I have found value and I recommend. Okay, so you can give it a shot. It's open source. So yeah.